for now. And we'll share the full screen. Okay. So, a little bit about Datapath for those of you that don't know Datapath, or for those of you that may need reminding. We're a worldwide manufacturer based in the UK, based in Derby. If anyone's ever visited the HQ there, it has grown a lot over time. And so that's where our main R&D and operations and sales are all based out of. And we do have sales support technical offices in the US and Japan, and our remote sales offices around the globe. Okay. So our VSN controllers, the main applications, control rooms, security operations centers, traffic management, defense, security suites. We've been involved in that area for a long time, I do apologize. Someone's asking me to move the webcam. It's not possible, which is why I've switched it off. On the chat for you guys. So we'll move on. Highlight controllers, which are a sort of a combination of our VSN controllers and some more of our smaller controllers. These work in or are aimed at boardrooms, auditoriums, digital signage projects, small crisis rooms. And then we have the multi-display range, which is slightly different. This is based more around showing one video or one source across multiple displays. So signage, corporate AV, TV studios, live events is a great area for them. And that's where we're going to start with today. So the multi-display range. So this is where Datapath has been probably introduced to a lot of people over the last few years, with some award-winning products. Originally the X4, which was a DVI splitter, scaler unit, which was very popular with our customer range. And we've moved on from this. Obviously DVI was in a little bit old hat, and we've moved on to HDMI and DisplayPort with the FX4, HX4, and subsequently FX4 SDI and HDR versions. Now, I know some of you were at ISE, some of you weren't. This is really an opportunity to try and introduce the FX4 HDR to you, because this was what we were launching in Amsterdam. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't make it due to various reasons. So the FX4 HDR builds on the success of the FX4, similar size enclosure, very similar connections. The main differences, the big differences, what we've added to it is a HDMI 2.0 input. So true 4K 60 444 input. So combined brilliantly with some of the new bright sign players that we've got out in the market. Other manufacturers, One LAN, Triple Play, Cable Time, some of their players as well. But it will take in now that 4K 60 full resolution, and then we can crop, scale that and output that to 4 or more screens, depending on how many units we have. We now support HDR10. So this is a big thing, especially for signage and retail in terms of that color and the color brightness. This is a very important feature which a lot of these or similar products don't support at the moment. So we're quite proud that we can do this, and we can fully support all of the features on these new players. Say on the bright sign have a a new HDR player. So we can fully support all of those features on that. It's HDCP 2.2 compatible. And for the first time in this area, we now support audio passing through as well. So it still has the same functionality, or very similar functionality to the FX4 range, but we have these additional features which, as far as we know, they're currently unique in the market, and they give us that edge, and they allow us to sort of future-proof for releases from other media player manufacturers that are going to support HDR10, HDMI 2.0. So it should help us moving forward to have the edge. Okay, and obviously we can rotate, crop, and scale as we would do any other FX4 or HX4, and we can loop through for multiple devices to create video walls of 8, 12, 16, multiple displays to showing that one video input across multiple scripts. Okay, and this is how the HDR unit looks. So we've got one HDMI 2.0 input. We do have two other HDMI 1.4 inputs. You can only show one at a time. So you could switch between the inputs if you wanted to, but you can only show one across the whole video wall. Okay. We've got 4 independent outputs, as you can see here. And we've got the loop out. So HDCP 2.2 loop out, so we can connect multiple boxes together and control them all from a single wall designer software. Okay. Then we do have the FX4. So this is still a big seller for Datapath, winner of the 2018 Innovate Awards, which we're very proud of. So this will take in 4K 60 on DisplayPort, also has a HDMI input, and you can output either on HDMI or DisplayPort depending on which unit you go for. And this is the difference in there. So you see we've got our DisplayPort in and DisplayPort loop out. Now I'm just showing you this. What I'm going to do is we're going to move on to like a live demo of the wall designer software. That is really what, well, that's award-winning in itself, that software. That is what drives these systems. It's what a lot of people like. It makes them very easy to use. And it's a really good sales tool as well once you've got that installed on your laptop. We do have an SDI version. So this is very popular with the live events guys. This was developed with some of the live events guys in the UK, particular Green Hippo in mind. So they were using FX4s and a converter from the output, either DisplayPort or HDMI, to SDI, so they could go over long distances for some of their broadcast events. This is a great unit for them and others because it takes that converter out of the equation. So you're taking a piece out of the chain, making it a lot simpler. So we can take that input in, usually on DisplayPort, and then it will convert it and output to SDI, giving you upscale and downscaling with the ability to crop and rotate like you would do any other FX4, but giving you that flexibility to output to SDI and convert a DisplayPort or HDMI signal. Okay, and we do have a stripped back version, the HX4, if you're only using HDMI and you're only using it with a 2x2 setup, okay, 4-screen setup. Okay, and if it's more of a budget conscious project. So probably a lot of people would say, why would we use these against a standard loop through of a display. I'll show you a little bit in the software about why we would do that. Straight off the bat, we would say we've got more control. We can mix and match different outputs, which is very useful. We can pixel by pixel adjust. Once we've got the signal, we can move it, and like I say, we can crop and scale, and we can combine portrait and landscape together. So there's lots of different options available to us. And this is just a comparison table. What I'll do is I'll give these slides out at the end of the presentation, so you can just work through and have a look at your leisure. So the Wall Designer software, this is what I mentioned. So this is a free software. You can download this from our website for free. And it has two main functions. One function is more of a sales and design tool. So we can use it, and I'll show you this shortly. We can use it to design video walls. You can send it presets to your customers to see what they think. It's a really powerful sales tool, and for free, it's brilliant. It really is. The second part is, once you've designed your wall, once you connect it via USB to the unit or units, apply the settings, and we can there go from a simple design tool to a powerful tool which will help you set up the video wall and allow video to be chopped, cropped, rotated, scaled to the particular size and resolution of your displays. So it's a very powerful tool. It's available for Windows or Mac. It's got a database preloaded with literally hundreds and hundreds of professional displays from various manufacturers. If they're not in there, you can enter them yourself, and it will save them to your own database. So like I say, it's very flexible. You can move monitors around. You can combine different size displays with different resolutions together, and allows you to create your design for a video wall. Say it's compatible with Mac now, which a lot of people were asking for. We now support Mac on this. So now I'm just going to go into a live demo of the software. Share my Wall Designer with you. Okay, so here's our Wall Designer software. Like I said, we've got a large database with various manufacturers in here. Literally hundreds and hundreds of professional displays which are listed. Let's just take an LG, for example. Pretty popular size, so 55. And here we have got, in this area, the complete details in terms of the resolution, the size of the display area, the thickness of each bezel, particular for that screen. So this is a very powerful tool. So not only will you enter this and it will give you the details of the screens, but it will also cut that video when we're outputting it to these particular size and shape of certain screens. So a lot of the work is done for you. Just as an example, we'll go in here and we'll add the outputs to my video wall. Okay, very easy to do. I'll just resize it here. It gives us an option to go in here and add some loaded images. So if we've got an office here, we can go in here and just see how that video wall may look in an office space, which you would all agree is quite a nice tool. It's very flexible in terms of it will allow you to browse and put your customer's picture in here. So if you wanted to, you could get the customer to take a picture, or you take a picture of the customer's reception area or wall in an airport or an office space where it's going to go. And then you could make designs, save them as presets, and email them over to the customer so they could have a look at them. So it's like I say, it's a great sales and design tool. So if we just go in here, what I'll do, we can have portrait or landscape. So I'll rotate some of these displays. Okay, so once I've got this area and it shows the size of that area, we can also add some content to the wall just to see how it will look. So we've got some static content here. We've got a Datapath logo, as you can see here. But what I'll do is I'll put a video on. I'm sure most people in the industry have seen this cartoon once or twice. And if we move back into the outputs, we can move these screens around while the video is still playing, so you can get your design how you would really like it to look. So it really is a nice, powerful design tool. Okay, and then we can go back into the input. We can refit that. Now we've moved them, and it will move the areas that are being cropped for different screens of that video around and fit accordingly. Okay, so once we've got this, we can then, you could potentially browse for your own content. So not only could you have your picture of your company's area that you're looking to put that video wall into, but you could show the customer's content on there. So like I say, you could really tailor a demo or some kind of layout to your customer's specific requirements. And it's quite an impressive tool when you're looking at doing that. And like I say, it's completely free. It's agnostic from the hardware in terms of you can have that on your laptop running completely independently and show off to different customers, consultants, whoever you're working with, what this is capable of. And say it's a great tool. Okay, we can go in here and adjust the capture region. So we can, for example, screen 1 is cropping that particular area of the video, but we can move that if we wanted to by hand, as you can see, or we could stretch that out. If you're looking at here, example being we've got the whole video playing on one display and the rest playing on here. Or we could replicate, you could have the same video playing on all of the displays. So it really is a very flexible setup that we've got. Then if we go into devices here, configure, it will show you your topology that you would have for this particular project, which is really useful. And then we would just go and hit apply settings here, and it will put those settings stored onto the boxes, and that will cut that video for depending on the particular display and resolution which we're outputting. I say it's very, very useful, very popular with our customers. Once we are connected, this is one of the joys and one of the advantages over standard loop through. We can switch these outputs. So I could switch output 1 here, output 2 here. If somebody's put the incorrect cable in behind the wall, saved us at many a trade show over the years, we can switch these outputs and then hit apply settings, and it will update these on the fly. So this could be really useful for installations or live events where you need to make those quick changes. We can do that. Okay. And then if we go back to the inputs on these adjust the capture regions, if your video wall is not quite right when you've got it installed and need to make some adjustments, we can move these areas that are being cropped up or down, or we can extend them here by hand. And this, as you can see, is changing the pixel, so we can move pixel by pixel. And this adjustment really gives us that edge over using standard screen loop through, because we can make all of these adjustments very easily on the fly per display And yeah, it's a very powerful way of doing the setup for your particular video wall. Okay. There are some more details. I'm not going to run through today. We probably won't have time, but potentially we could do a separate FX4 webinar to go through a lot more of the details. Now we can use these with LEDs, and I will send those details out. But today's more of a general overview, going into a little bit of detail about this and the controllers. So I'm conscious that we need to go through a lot of material on the controllers. So I'm going to stop this on the FX4 here, but say I'm more than happy to answer questions and you know, send through details of further information on FX4 in more depth should it be required. Okay, so I've got one question. Yeah, can we use multi-size screens? Yes, it's a very good question. I will go in here and just start again, just give you an idea of how we can do this. So let's just put the background image in here. We'll add that same LG display to the video wall again, but we'll also go in and add an LG 84-inch, for example. Add that to the wall. Here we go. So we can combine and we can have one in portrait, one in landscape. You can have as many as you like. You could combine these together. Let's put our input across. And there's your different size displays. In terms of how many can we cascade, we can connect, or we've tested, I think the maximum we've tested so far is 8 units daisy chained together. So that gives us obviously 32 screen video wall, which is pretty big if you're just showing one video across it all. And obviously you're limited then by your 4K content input. So there, it's like I say, it's very flexible. You're really limited by your content, but you know, we can make big, and we've seen big video walls using this. And even if your content is 4K scaled up across 16 or 20 displays, it still does look very good. Okay. One thing which I forgot to add, we can also use this, and lots of people do, with projectors. So where we've got our output selection here, we can go to projector and select a specific resolution, and you can combine multiple projectors together. So these have been used in some fantastic projects around the world, and you can see these on our website in the case studies section. There are some really clever installations going on, and have been across the world over the last few years with FX4 and the like. Okay, I'm going to stop there on multi-display products. Are there any more questions? So yes, there is only one input, so we can only show one input at any one time. We can flick between the two. So you could have one input from one media player, one on the other, but you can only show one at any one time, and you can flick between the others. If the model is not in the list, we can quite easily go and add new details, and we can enter the details, as you can see here, and then you can put in the model number, resolution, and once you've saved that, it will save that in your list here. In terms of the projectors, I'll do a very brief, just an example. It won't show as a specific projector, it will just show as a resolution, and we would put, for example, 3 projectors here, and then these can potentially manage the overlap area, but you would still need to use the edge blending software of the projectors to get that edge blend. Okay. Maximum number of displays. Like I say, we've tested it up to 8 boxes, which is 32 displays, and then you're just limited really by your content. Okay, I'm going to close this down now. If there are any other questions, please save this until the end when we can have another chat about things. I'm going to go into now back into the PowerPoint. Okay. So our video wall systems. So this is the other area really where Datapath is say famous for, but well known for in the industry. We have a large range of video capture cards, and we can combine these within our different chassis with our graphics output cards and our software to create a full video wall solution. So our product portfolio really in this area, we've got the large 4U rack mount chassis, and then we have smaller, more compact and quiet chassis, which can still utilize the same capture cards and the same software, but in a smaller, quieter setup here. And this is obviously we have, like I said, we've got a big range of capture cards, graphics cards, and a decoding card as well. So we can take in many different sources all in and create that bespoke video wall management system. So this is how a typical Datapath system would look really. We've got multiple inputs coming in, and these can be from a number of areas, AV sources coming in via capture cards, HDMI, DisplayPort, and others. We could have IP streams or servers coming in, being decoded by our active SQX card. These are being brought in as sources as well. And networks, so sharing desktops, VNC. So we've got many different sources which are coming in into our box, which is managing them. And then you could potentially manage this via support from command line or APIs. So you could have Crestron, AMX, RTI touch panels, monitoring this and driving different layouts, different sources. We can also manage via our client software as well. So you could have various setups, multiple video walls, you could have local applications, video sources, or you could have potentially one video across the whole wall if you needed to, picture in picture. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about that now. So the features of our video wall processors, what do they give you? They give you the chance to go single source across the whole wall, if you like, although probably not as required as in the previous section with the multi-display units. Multiple sources per output, so effectively like a multi-viewer, but a more powerful version of a multi-viewer, because we can have those multi-sources on each output and flexibly create those different screen layouts, of which you'll see when we look at the software. Picture in picture, picture over picture, free form mode, so you can drag your sources across different areas of the video wall or different parts of the wall, maintaining the aspect ratio or not, depending on your particular setup. And ability to show source devices, so other media players coming in, Blu-ray players, web browsers, all of these different sources combined in to create your particular video wall setup. Here, just an example, we've got single source maximized across multiple displays. Just to give you an example of what we're looking at here. So what is needed for this? Scaling. So we've got that in our capture cards. The scaling is done on the capture card hardware. So rather than going into the controller and using the CPU, our engineers are very proud of the fact that all of the grunt is done on the capture card, and you won't need to strain the CPU of the system too much. We can maintain the aspect ratio if we need to. We can crop certain areas if we need to. So if you've got a big 4K video coming in and you've got certain areas you want to focus on, do that. And different sources, types, backgrounds. Multiple sources per output, so effectively creating a powerful multi-viewing platform if we need to. And this is great for current LED installations that maybe only require one output going into its sender box. We can make that one output from our system have or contain multiple sources. So it is a very powerful solution. And here's an example of other multiple sources going into outputs. And we need layers. So those multiple sources coming in, we can manage those different layers. And picture in picture, picture over in picture, we can do that. Here we've got one background and other pictures or sources laid over the top of them. So we can do that with the different layers that we support per output. And freeform mode, so we can drag various sources, either maintaining or not maintaining the aspect ratio to fit full display or certain areas of that display, however you want to show it. There you can see here we've got one which has been stretched to show some statistics, and others which have been reduced in size to fit a particular screen. Again, we can manage this with different layers on the output. So the source device, let's say we can install software on the particular chassis on that hardware, and then it can run from there. Just had a couple of questions come in. Yes, the PowerPoint will be shared at the end. So the maximum numbers are, Shivanand's already answered it for me. So yes, on currently we have Windows 7 systems. These are 64 or support up to 64 outputs, and the Windows 10 systems support 48 outputs, and we have 4K outputs as well now. So potentially with loop through, we can support more than that as well. So there are different options, and we'll go through these shortly. So the VSM Micro and Iolite, these are our sort of sub brands of Windows-based controllers. Just a reminder, this is how they look, and this is the portfolio. So the 4U rack mount systems, these are available with 4, 9 or 11 slot chassis, and some of these come with an i7, a single Xeon or a dual Xeon option. So there are a lot of options. That's where it's always good to ask the question so we can help you to narrow down your choice and create the specific product which is more suitable to your project, your budget. Okay. So with regards to how many layers we can have, I think I would have to check with my colleagues, but I think we can have 16 per output, but it may be more. I need to check that. Okay, and we have different options for storage and single or dual power supply. We can expand systems if we need to. So if we have some of the really big systems, like we were saying, 64 with Windows 7 or 48 on Windows 10 outputs, we can daisy chain multiple chassis together to help create those bigger systems. So like I say, with those maximum number of outputs and potentially hundreds of inputs, depending on whether it's HDMI or IP, which is getting a lot more popular with our customers with our decode card. And then we have the VSN Micro 600, which is a smaller box which was developed for some of our customers in the UK that wanted a smaller, quieter system and didn't necessarily have a rack to put it in. They wanted to have it in their meeting room or under a desk in a reception area. And this is ideal for that. It's pretty much silent operation, but it still gives us the power of some of the bigger systems, and it still uses the same capture, graphics, and software technology, which allow us to manage those video walls. So just to recap these VSN controllers, the bigger units, control rooms, security operations centers, managing defense projects, security suites, surveillance, exec briefing rooms. So there's a huge amount of areas which they can potentially go into. And then the iOLite systems are more of a, or they're aimed at people who don't necessarily want to get deep down in the tech. We offer these, or we try to offer them mainly as a pre-boxed solution. For example, 4 HDMI in, 4 HDMI out, video wall controller, pre-boxed off the shelf with software. So this is one part code, and it makes it a lot easier if you've just got customers who don't really care what controller they have. They want a simple controller, say for a boardroom or reception area. This fits the bill very well for that. Okay. So I've had some question, or one question: what is the maximum output and input possibility? So with FX4, we'll just very quickly go back to that. Input is just one input we can show. We can have 3 inputs connected, but we can only show 1 at any one time. The maximum outputs, we've tested it to 32. Potentially you could go to more. VSNs with expansion, maximum is 64 outputs on Windows 7, 48 on Windows 10, and inputs, it really does depend on the combination. So we can have potentially, once you've got your output cards in, we could have maybe 40 or more input cards. So you could have a lot of inputs coming in. If we've got multiple decoding cards, we can have a lot of decodes. For example, IP cameras being decoded at any one time, all coming in. Okay, so the expansion slot, that is a serial cable which Datapath has, which is offered with the expansion unit all in, and that allows us to daisy chain up to 5 11-slot chassis together. So it gives us 51 potential card slots. Okay. Now the iOLite range, just let's say we like to offer it as a pre-boxed solution with the iOLite 600, ideal for some of the more advanced retail signage applications that we've got now, boardrooms, headquarters, corporate headquarters. So again, flexible, uses the same capture cards and the same software. So the iOLite, like I said, we've got pre-configured models. This is inside the unit. So it's, here you've got 6 slots. So you can configure the unit if you want to, but the way I like to push it to my customers around the globe is more of a pre-boxed unit. So one part code, here you go, iLight 600, just go back, sorry. iLight 600 101 with 4 inputs, 4 outputs, all HDMI, software included. So all the customer needs to do is specify one particular part code. Okay. And again, 102 with 8 outputs, 103 with 12, 104 with 60. And more recently, we've released what's called the iLight 12i. So this is slightly different to our other systems that we've released, as this includes the outputs on the box. So they're integrated outputs rather than a separate graphics card. The difference with this is obviously it's rack mountable, it's got that small form factor, and it's a bit different in terms of what we can offer, because we can offer 4K 60 on the DisplayPort outputs as well. Okay, so it's a sort of a mix and match. So we can have 12 full HD outputs on HDMI if we want to, or we could have 3 4K outputs, or 1 4K and 8 full HD. So the reason that this was designed, as well as giving us that option to rack mount an iLight system, was also to be able to combine multi-display. So you could have a 4K display with a full HD display in the same installation, which at the time we couldn't do. Now we can, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that in the software that we've got now, which allows us to do this. So this is just a comparison table, and say I will send out the slides afterwards. Everybody will get a copy or a link to the copy of this. So that should help you in deciding which is the most suitable. Just some examples of case studies for these particular units. Here we've got a retail installation in Russia. So this is where they needed something with more functionality than, say, an FX4. Here we've got a corporate video playing from some kind of player connected to a content management system. So we've got that coming in on HDMI. We've got a static logo, which is set up, which is stored on the box. And then we've got some other free-flowing content coming in. So this is managing those particular inputs across that video wall, as opposed to just one video across the whole wall. An example for a corporate reception here. So we've got, you might have a reception area, a waiting area, easily accessible for reception staff to control. You could change it through our software client. Potentially you could add text onto the wall welcoming different customers or partners coming to your office. So the benefits with the iLight, say it's quiet, you can keep it under a counter, potentially. You could utilize our SQX cards to decode the video, so it's not straining. If you're playing a local video, it's not straining the CPU of the system. So it's, like I say, a very, again, a flexible system. Datapath systems are inherently flexible. That's why they're built usually to order, so we can create a bespoke system for your particular customer requirements. And another case study in a boardroom, for example. So for 6 or 8 screen video walls, we use, for example, a 6-screen video wall in our boardroom. This allows us to access different conferencing facilities. We can capture laptops that are running different conferencing tools. Say it's very quiet in that room, and we can also capture in different feeds coming into the system. So it's really flexible yet powerful system. Like I say, just a quick recap: boardrooms, auditoriums, signage, high-end signage, and small crisis rooms. Now these could be used for that. Okay. We haven't had any more questions on that, so I'm going to move on to the video capture and IP decoding, or essentially our input cards. If we just keep it simple, and I'm going to talk about our input cards, our output cards, and then I'm going to move on to the software. So we do have a big range of capture cards, and a lot of the, well, all of these are available to see on our website, but I'm just going to focus on our latest range, which is the Vision SC range for today. Most video wall controllers systems can be built using these, or some combination of these with our decode card. And they also have the latest features. But if you do have any questions about some others in the range after this, feel free to send them over by email, and I can look at those for you. So the main backbone of a lot of our systems currently still is the Vision SC HD4+. This takes in 4 HDMI or DisplayPort inputs, DVI inputs going in via dual splitter cables into this connections here. Supports HDCP 2.0, and potentially you could combine those two outputs to give you 2 4K 30 inputs. We have an SDI card, so this is the SDI4. This will capture 4 3G SDI inputs, full HD. And then the more recent additions, so we have the SCDP2 to give us 2 4K 60 DisplayPort capture slots, and it supports HDCP 2.0. And the most recent is the UHD2. So Vision SC UHD2 is our most recent and flagship capture card. It offers 2 HDMI 2.0 ports. It supports 4K 60, 444, so full fat 4K video, and it supports HDCP 2.2. So this is our flagship card. So Windows based, we support 4K. Standard is a 3-year warranty, but these can be increased to 5 should you require that. And then we have our active SQX or decoding card. So this has got very popular over the last 12 months. This allows us to take in IP streams, mainly from IP cameras, or we find, and these are coming in, or IPTV streams that have been put onto the network. We can take these in and decode them and show them as sources, and then display them onto the video wall. Makes a very powerful system. So these can be combined with other inputs, local videos, web sources, and it gives us that real flexibility to create a big or small video wall system. Okay, so the main stats that we like to show is this will decode 12 full HD streams at 30 frames per second. That's a bit of a benchmark. And then see less if it's a higher resolution video, or more if it's some of the lower resolution cameras, up to potentially 50 per card. So we can do some really big systems. And now our graphics or our output cards. So a lot of you would be familiar with the Image DP4+, which was released to coincide with the Windows 10 systems. It was an update to our Image DP4 card. This has a larger memory and helps us to support 48 simultaneous outputs on a Windows 10 platform. Okay, so this is DisplayPort native output, but we offer this with HDMI or DVI output splitters. Okay. And then our more recent addition is the image 4K. This is building on the knowledge that we've gained writing our own drivers for the image DP4 and DP4 Plus, and we've added this to a more powerful, up-to-date connector in terms of HDMI 2.0. So we can now offer 4K 60 HDMI outputs. We support HDCP 2.2 when it's used with the Datapath capture cards, and it allows us to support up to 6 cards in a system. So potentially 24 4K outputs. And if you're looping through, if you've got a nice setup in terms of aspect ratio on your video wall, you could loop through using this 4K and get up to 96 full HD displays. So that is a way of increasing the size potentially of your video wall. With the bandwidth required for this, it's obviously a lot more than the standard DP4 card. This will only work in the VSN 400, VSN 600 micro, and the VSN 11 series. This will not work in an iLite or a VSN 900 due to the bandwidth on the particular backplane of that system. Just something to bear in mind when you're designing a system. Okay, so I appreciate that's quite a lot of information to take in. Just gonna have a little drink. What really we need to be doing is asking the right questions. That allows myself and our partners to create the best solution, narrow down the options. Like I say, Datapath has a lot of options, and push the customer in a certain direction of product and solution. So what should we be asking? Input sources, AV, for example, how many, what resolution, what frame rate, is audio required? So for example, is it, a standard 4 HDMIs in, or is it going to be combination of HDMI, DisplayPort, SDI? We can do that. We just need to know and the quantities, and then it allows us to locate which is the best card or cards and put them in a relevant chassis. IP, what quantities, how many you want to display at any one time, resolutions, frame rate. And these are all things that we can, if we have this information up front, it makes it a lot quicker and a lot easier to design a system or help design a system. Okay. Do we need to switch, with the sources in a carousel? We're able to do this. I'll talk about that in the software section. Are we willing to have VNC? So do we want local screen sharing? We can do this. Do we want to offer local applications? Do we need to support DirectX, OpenGL? Do we need KVM, for example? So we do have some KVM support. I'll talk to you about that as well. And what output devices? So what output connection potentially, preferred signal cable type. Is it full HD? Is it 4K? Do we need to go to LEDs? Do we need to offer different resolutions? Do we need to crop any of that? Do we need to go projectors? Lots of different questions, which really we could do with that information up front, and it saves going backwards and forwards to create your particular solution. And if there's a tender which has gone out, then we might be going up against other manufacturers, for example, where they specified a particular CPU, be it a Xeon, which would be nice because it's a lot more expensive. So there's more money in it for yourselves, your customers, and essentially us as well. Whether it needs a larger RAM, whether it needs a single or dual power supply, different size storage areas. So lots of different options, flexibility in there. Yes, just had a question. PowerPoint will be shared at the end. Everybody will be sent a link, so I'll do that after the event. And another question, any third-party controller? So yes, this links into control. So how do you want to manage it? You can manage it through, say, having an operator workstation or client's software which controls it, or you can set up layouts through this software which allow you then to access it through telnet command. So Crestron, AMX, RTI, all of these control systems can potentially fire layout files which you've already created. So that's it for our hardware, and now we're going to look at the software. Okay, so what we've got for free is the display driver configuration tool. I'll briefly run through this. We've got Wall Control 10, which is the management, and then we've got a diagnostic suite, which is pre-installed on all Datapath systems, and you can download it from the website, which allows you, if you do have any issues, to quickly diagnose problems, check driver installations, check serial numbers of certain things, and send details back to our support team, which is an area which we are very keen to work with you on. We have a very strong team, and they can offer the support, and this helps them get that information back to them quickly. So the DDCT, or the design display driver configuration tool, essentially a design tool, which it works like a wizard and allows us to set up a display wall for each setup that you have, whether it's for projectors, LEDs, or standard LCDs. Okay, this will boot up and just talk you through it. So here we can have, similar to the wall designer software that we saw earlier, we've got a preloaded database here, and we can have the setup with HDMI, DisplayPort, we can have bezel compensation. Now I am going to just run through this very briefly because I want to actually get onto the Wall Control 10, which is the management software, but this is very useful. And this was developed initially for use with the iLight 12i, so we could combine multiple displays in different resolutions. So we can have a 4K screen with some full HD screens, and it gives us the option to do that. So we can manage different display groups if we need to. It gives us a lot of different options. It can give us the chance to overlap projectors if we need to. LED walls, so it gives us the option to select LED displays, and we can go down and put in the physical module height and how many, the resolution, and then how many we've got up and across. Multiple display groups, so it gives us the option to have multiple of these to go through to give each of them a different name. So you potentially can mix display walls with projector walls and LED walls, all being driven from the same controller, so they're sharing sources effectively. And then Wall Control 10. So this is the management software, which is really the powerful tool which we've developed over the last 2 years, really, and really added a lot of features to give you that control. Okay, and this is how it looks with your sources down the left-hand side. Very easy to just drag and drop onto the video wall or create your layouts and templates from that. So multi-wall, this is one big feature. So it allows us to support multiple video walls from the same controller. We're finding this a lot more popular nowadays. So you could potentially have a video wall in your reception area, one in a crisis room, one in a management room. They can all share sources, and we can manage these outputs from the same software, okay, from the same GUI effectively. Just have different tabs for different video walls. And the overview. So this is how it looks. Various source types. Here we go. These would be your capture cards, your vision sources. Then we've got images, local images, internet sources. So you could display websites. Here we've got the BBC websites, or you could display company URLs that want to show data. We found this a lot, very popular in the Indian market, where people are showing data from different factory inputs coming in. So it might be temperature gauges, or it might be different data that's coming in and changing all the time. We can monitor this. Local applications, remote connections. We support VNC via our own Datapath agent. I'll talk about that shortly. And we can scale and crop some of these sources and put them into carousels as well. So the carousel is where we've got multiple sources showing on one particular window, and these will rotate every so many seconds depending on how you've set it up. Okay, and this is the templates, is the way you create your layouts initially. So we would initially add the number of boxes, and then we can group these boxes into areas. So this will chop up effectively those parts of video wall. Okay, so these templates can then be applied to the whole video wall, or once you've put them on to the video wall, then you can put a template within a template. For example, if you wanted to divide a 2x2 video wall, we could do that, but then we could divide each screen up by, say, a 3x3 to show 9 IP cameras on each screen. Okay. So one of the questions we've just had in is, can wall control multi-video walls? Yes, that is very possible. You can control multi-walls. You would set it up. You would have a different tab. Just see if I can go back and show you. So here we've got a tab, and then we can have different tabs here for wall 1, wall 2, wall 3. So very easy to set up. On-screen display. So we've just added this in a recent release. So now we can go in and add, for example, camera 1 text or area 2, 3 onto the sources which you're showing. And I've got some more slides on this, which I'll talk about shortly. Cropping, so we can now take a vision or an SQX or a decoded source, and we can take a crop of that area. So you can lock the aspect ratio if you need to. You can manually crop it, and this is then saved as a separate input. So not only can you show the full video, you could show a cropped region of it on the same wall at the same time. And we can also split it. It gives you the option of splitting equally. So you could split, say, a 4K input into 4 equal full HD splits and save those as 4 separate inputs. The multi-video, another question, multi-videos, can they be used at multi-locations? They need to be on the same network. Okay, and then carouseling. So just a little bit more detail about carouseling. So here we can combine multiple sources together, effectively making up a playlist. So we can put different sources, so local videos, images, captures, and we can change the duration of them. And once we drag that onto the wall or put it into a layout, it can then auto play, and then it will automatically change, okay, from one to another. I'll answer questions that aren't on topic, or try to if we've got time at the end. Wall control 10, remote connections. So we've effectively taken VNC, wrapped it up in a Datapath outer called Datapath Agent. So you can download this. It gives the opportunity to install it when you install the client, Wall Control 10 client, either on your laptop or your operator PC. This then allows us to share your desktop as a source, and here it will come in as a remote connection on the video wall. So we can see it in Wall Control 10 and then just drag it onto the video wall. Web page sources, so like I say, we support URLs. Now we allow us, give us a bit more control over them. So not only can we display them, but we can zoom in on certain areas, and we can refresh after a certain time. So if you've got data which is constantly being updated every, say, few minutes, we can set that up to update every few seconds. And then we can zoom in. We find a lot of these URLs, it's wasted space. Once it's shown and stretched on a video wall, they don't necessarily auto fit with that area. A lot of it is wasted white space. So we can zoom in on the particular area of that URL that you want to see, which is very useful in a lot of the factories or command rooms which we're going into. So this is how you would see it. Okay, this is your Wall Control 10 client. And we do have a web interface now, a simple web interface. So this can be controlled if you've got a tablet or a phone which can access that particular network. We can go to that IP address and just drive preloaded layouts which you've already created, and we can just use a touch application, just touch on these, and they will drive the wall. And I'll say, for the questions people have asked, does it support being driven by Crestron, AMX, RTI, or someone else if you want to wrap something around it? We can do that. We have command line interface, so we support Telnet, people using Crestron or AMX. We do have SDKs if people do want to wrap their own software around it as well. Good question. Would Datapath Agent help to display the videos and slideshows without frame loss? Not really. There is a, you're delayed by your resolution, the network bandwidth. So we would only recommend this just as a, as an option. But if you're looking to display fast moving video and doing it for a long amount of time, we would recommend that you capture that via the capture card so you can get your full frame, full fidelity quality. If you're using Datapath Agent, this is just to screen share, and for moving video, it's not really the best because you're limited by the VNC and the network basically, but it can be useful. So this is just a comparison of Wall Control 10. So we have a standard version, a pro version, and the VMS version, which supports Milestone security software. Now, I'm not going to go into too much depth about Milestone today, but there is a separate webinar coming up next week, which we're doing in conjunction with Milestone, which would be well worth people who are in the security area or current Milestone partners to have a look at this, because it's a very powerful tool. We've just been approved by Milestone as an approved milestone partner, and you will see in this joint webinar of what we can do together to manage a surveillance video wall. Going back to the standard and the pro versions, the main difference is the pro version is required for IP decoding of any more than 8 streams. So if you're going to use your active SQX cards, you need the pro version. Multiple video walls, you need the pro version. And user rights management via Active Directory, you use the pro version. But all of the other functions which we've shown are available in the standard version. So just going back on those functions, just as a reminder, so templates, aspect ratio control, on-screen display, cropping, carousel support, web client, remote connection, KVM, I'll talk a little bit about that shortly, web page, URL, zoom and scroll, lots of different options which are included in the standard version, and there's no additional cost per output or per user, which is something which a lot of our competition do charge for. And the pro version, just a quick reminder, they're the features: multi-wall, user rights management via Active Directory, and active SQX decoding. Okay. And just as an update for those of you that are very familiar with Wall Control 10, the most recent additions that we've released, going from 1.9 to 1.12. So 1.9 was at the end of last year, and 1.12 will be, hopefully, depending on how our home working software team can manage, should be by the end of April, I hope. It may run into May, depending on how we can test it together. So 1.9 introduced the web interface, which is great for once you've created your layouts, we can drive these via a touchscreen interface. Fantastic addition. Doesn't always get used, but it's a very good feature to demo, say, during a particular demo to the management. It's very impressive the way it looks, and it creates a bit of a wow factor. But it can also be useful, especially if you're in a reception area, just the ability to just very quickly just touch a screen and change layouts. Very, very useful. Interesting question just come in about encoding software, so certain streams can be decoded by SQX. Keep that question to mind, because I'll brush on that in a couple of slides time. KVM to source using Datapath agent, I'll talk about that, and some advanced browser control. Okay, so the web architecture. So not only can we use this on a tablet or phone to give us that touch screen, we can also, if you don't want to give people full access to the client software, they could just have this IP address on their particular browser, and then all they have access to literally is to be able to click on certain layouts to drive the video wall. So in effect, it's very basic, but it can be a way of locking down the sources so that only operators can click on layouts. Okay. And this is how it looks. It also gives us that option now to take a snapshot. So if you're not in the particular room of the video wall, we can click on this button and it will give us a snapshot of how the wall is looking and what sources are shown and where on that wall at any one time. KVM to source is an interesting one. So where we've got the Datapath agent source, so I showed you remote connections as a source in Wall Control 10, we can now right click through our software and open up that particular agent stream and take control of it. So for example, if we're taking at someone's workstation, through Datapath agent share their desktop, through Wall Control 10, we can take control of their workstation, ideal for, say, entering user credentials, login credentials, so we can do that via our software KVM. So that's very useful. And some advanced browser features, which I discussed earlier, but these were added at the same time. So yes, the ability to refresh, zoom in, and horizontally or vertically scroll and start where you need that particular URL to show, rather than wasting a lot of the space that's on the video wall. And there's a few new command line commands for those of you that are using Crestron, AMX, etc. SQX sources have now secured passwords. We didn't have that in the past. So this is just, again, I'm just going into really a lot of depth now, just showing you what is possible. On-screen display was added at this time. They're very easy to just right click on the source, and then we can go in and add text, change the color, where it's going to display on the video wall, and we can add different variables, so source name, time, date, resolution, etc. 1.11 was launched in January, and this allows us now to add colored borders to sources, colored frames around any particular window, zoom in on PDFs, more power with carousels, and if you are using the milestone link, then we've got support for playback with milestone as well now. So here's the colored borders. So if you're working on a certain area of the video wall, you could set it up as a different color for different operators. You can have it flashing on and off. So again, just different options and a lot more flexibility. All you do is right click on the particular source and we can add that border. Frames, so these will work on all windows, not just SQX and Vision sources, and we can have various default colors set up to work on different frames on the video wall. PDF control, very similar to the URL control. Now we can set the scale initially, where it opens on a particular page vertically and horizontally, and zoom in and zoom out. Okay. And 1.12, which is scheduled for release, I'm going to say hopefully at the end of April, will support a number of features which we've been asked for, and we haven't been able to do it up until now. So the ability to rename Blueprint. So it's not a massive issue, but for some customers with certain languages and certain regions, they've wanted the ability to rename Blueprint. So it actually took quite a bit of work to do this. We've done that. We can now handle a lot more sources coming into the software, and we've made a lot of client server discovery improvements. Going back to the question which came in about encoding, Vision restreaming, which will be a pro feature, will allow us to take the Vision sources that are connected to the controller and make them available as H.264 streams. Okay, so these would be on the network, available to either be decoded by the active SQX card on another controller, so you could share sources from one controller to another on the same network, or potentially you could pick up those those sources to play, say using VLC. If you wanted to have a VLC player on your operator workstation, potentially you could use that as a live preview. So you could get that source which is coming in, stream it to your desktop and have a look at it first if it's sensitive data, rather than putting it onto your video wall straight away. That's a nice feature. And one which a lot of people have been asking us for signage, reception areas, and alerts as well, is banners and RSS. So we will support, I saw it demoed yesterday and it's working very well. So we will allow banners to be placed onto the video wall with scrolling text from left to right or right to left, with or without transparent backgrounds, and that support RSS feeds as well. Okay, we had a question. Vision restreaming, will it consume CPU usage? It will do, yes, as far as I know. So at the moment, we don't have any numbers on how many of these we will be able to do at any one time. Like I say, it's still in its testing phase at the moment. Okay. And another question, is the application running on the video wall also being coded? At the moment, no. It's just vision, so just vision sources. So they're the capture card sources, which will be available to be streamed. In terms of encoding any other sources, that will be further down the line in Datapath's next generation of products and features, which is probably going to be 2021 if I'm realistic about, or the end of this year when it's released. More details to follow on that. So that's it for me. I think we've done pretty well on time.